Well, in one word, Matthew.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he was, like we'd spoken to other builders, but Matthew was the first one we actually thought was interested in the project, not just as a builder. You know, he's very personable, and I think one of the things you have to really be conscious of nowadays with builders is that trust element. You know, there's hear so many sort of horror stories where people sort of get a half build or part build and then things go pear-shaped. And Matthew we had his trust straight away.
I thought,
He just,
we could trust
just knew
him
we
right
could
from the
trust
word
him.
go.
Yeah. When he arrived, like, he's just so easy to communicate with. You feel comfortable straight away, and he'd obviously, you could see his expertise. Like, we're in a fire area here, so we had no real idea about Bell 29, which is the level we're at, and just what was required. But that wasn't an issue for him. He was right across that, and you just got a sense that it was going to happen. Like, he was there for the long term. He was going to get it done, and it'd be a really good build. So, yeah, that trust factor again. We just knew that it was going to happen, and above all others, he was the person we're going to go with. So, yeah. So it was during the tender process, the discussion, that we said, yeah. We looked at each other, didn't we? We said, yep.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Just felt, yeah, Matthew was very trustworthy. I don't feel we would have come out with the result that we have, you know. And this is exactly what I thought it was going to look like. So I'm very pleased.
Yeah.
With the
I mean, Jen did a
result.
lot of using an app on the computer. You know, you've done a lot of little design stuff, and this is exactly what she sort of envisaged. You know, so I don't know that we would have got that with some of the other builders. Like, Matthew was very open to communication all the time about we want little changes, or and if we ran into a few issues, which we did, was nothing under his control. We had termites in our deck, but he was across that straight away and managed to get that done, I think, pretty economically, really. He was very conscious of costs and looking after us that way as well. So I'm not sure we would have got that with the others. I just didn't have that same feel, really. There you go. Your design.
Yeah, well, Matthew is meticulous, as Ian said. You know, he does everything to perfection. So I was very impressed with that, and you can see with the finished result, it's just beautiful. So
yeah, like, I mean, adding this on, we had trouble sort of envisaging how it might all go together. Like I said to him, I think probably on a couple of occasions, I just in awe how something on a piece of paper drawn up suddenly becomes reality. And as Jen said, like, there was attention to detail. He had some ideas as well around our fireplace at the back here. It originally had two walls sticking out, which he said, I don't think you really need them, and we're so pleased he brought that up, because it would have really ruined the look of that. So they've added on about 15 feet from what we originally had. They've replicated their high ceilings, which we love, and Matthew was able to source materials that sort of kept the character, if you like, of the old cottage and translated it into the new one. So yeah, very, very happy with it, really.
yeah,
Could have asked for
he
more.
went to a lot of trouble matching
Yeah.
things such as the floorboards, the beams. Yeah,
On the inserts up there, like the roof boards were,
yeah.
yeah. He had an alternative up there because we couldn't get these boards anymore that we had used. They're obviously 20 plus years in the past. So yeah, he sourced materials as well. So, you know, just went that extra mile all the time.
Yes, they did.
Yes, it did. Yes.
Yes, they did all along, all through the process. There was a contract at the very beginning that we signed showing progress payments. And Matthew did respect that the whole way.
Yeah, he explained that all the way through. And I think the materials he sourced, he didn't compromise on quality, but he was always after the best option in that sense for us as well. You know, he said we could use that, but it was a very expensive. I got something that's identical in terms of quality and durability, and it's not as expensive. So those discussions happened all the time. So he's very conscious that, you know, it's an expensive thing to do. Extensions don't come cheaply. But yeah, he was across that. So, you know, and sort of really looked after us, I think. Yeah. Yep.
They certainly did. In fact, he was 2 weeks earlier than planned. So yeah, we're very pleased.
Yeah, and that was despite, as I said, like the idea was to replace our decking boards, and once we pulled up the old ones, there was a lot of termite damage. So that could have actually extended the time. You know, it was difficult. We had to get an engineer in, we had to get extra stuff done, and he had all that done and still finished 2+ weeks early. So yeah, and the good thing was he gave us a timeline. Like, we knew where he was at all the time, because we had some external people. Like the fireplace came from an outside source. We sourced that, and we had the windows from an outside source. So, and they probably even caused a delay. Our windows took 6 months to get here. So Matthew had to work all around that, and, you know, get his timetable differently so that they could happen. And they mucked that up as well. They had to come back a second time. So yeah, I think the fact that it finished that early just shows the competence of Matthew in managing not only his trades, but timeline and project management. Really, it's exceptional.
Everyone was very easy to work with.
Yeah.
I think Matthew had probably teed them up once again on what they could and couldn't do on the site, you know. Yeah, no, everybody was very nice, very amiable.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the initial stuff, it was 2 people, Matthew and Andrew, and we already knew about Matthew, but Andrew was terrific as well. Yeah. Very personable and hard workers. They get here by 7:30 in the morning, and I don't, even though some of the hot weather, I didn't really even see them take much of a break. You know, it was a drink of water, whatever, and they worked all the way through till sort of 4 o'clock and then went. So it was just terrific, the management of the people and the quality. I think Matthew had a real insistence on the outcome that was a result of their work. An interesting thing that we had, I thought I'd do the caulking under the boards, and I got through about 10 of them, and Matthew came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "No, that's not the standard." And he was right, because I'm a pretty amateur sort of DIY bloke. So I was glad in the way eventually that it got finished the way it should have. So he really, I think he only employs people who are really good at their job, and have the same work ethic. You know, make the most of the time that's available, and yeah, their work was quality everywhere, really. Sets them apart, because we haven't built for, like 25 years ago, we built the original cottage, and that was a good experience as well. But again, it was just Matthew, I think, just his personal connection with people. It was a no fuss managed, easy ride for us, you know. I think that's what made it really different. And plus, inside, I think, really bought into what we wanted the mood of the place to look like, how we wanted to keep the character of the old cottage, make it part of the new one, and they bought into that, absolutely. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think Matthew really invested himself in this project, and many times he said how much he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was nice to hear.
Which was very nice to hear, yeah.
Yeah. We have sort of already recommended him on a couple of occasions already. Family members, from my point of view, even where I work, secondary college, I put his name up for one of the building projects I had there. And also I entered him in the Telstra Business of the Year. I submitted his name. I don't know what happened to that, and they probably get 1,000 of them, but yeah, that's how sort of impressed we were with the whole thing. And I believe he's building locally again here, and we've actually spoken to those clients before they committed to pass on our experience. And really, what do we say? We say you're getting a quality person who does a quality job, very reliable, very personable, and you're going to be very pleased with the outcome. So, yeah, so we've already done that.
I think they may have jumped at the opportunity, just like we did then, yeah. Once they met Matthew, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we've done, and and certainly I would unreservedly recommend him to anyone who came across us and said, look, how was your experience? Very, very positive. I mean, I think it's around his investment again. Like a couple of times he was waiting on supply, so he didn't really have to be here, but he came up and checked on things. If we had our outside source people who were here coming to do stuff, he would come up to make sure he was on site when they were here as well. He didn't really need to be here. So that was above and beyond again. I think when you get Matthew and Insight Building involved, you get the whole package. Absolutely the whole package. Can we just sort of publicly say thank you to Matthew and Insight as well? I mean, this is a dream, and we're just so pleased with the outcome.
Yep.
So, and we're going to have him back for a barbecue as a sort of little bit of a housewarming or something like that as well. So, yeah, he's become more than a builder to us. So.
Yep.
You had a word. We thought about this word. Yeah.
Well, my word would be that I'm ecstatic with the finished product. Yeah. As Ian said, it is a dream come true. 30 years ago when we bought this property, it was just a paddock, and we built the original cottage, but now it is more than I ever thought it would become. Our little cottage is now a big cottage, and it's great. It's given us the room that we needed, so we can share it now with family and friends. And yeah, thank you, Matthew.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.